3. And we are live. All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our latest Wasabi live stream. My name is Lily McIntyre, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at Wasabi. And I'm joined today by two, I guess we would call you guys regulars on the live streams at this point. But for those of you who don't know them, we have Drew Schlussel, who is the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Wasabi, and Andrew Smith, who is our Senior Manager of Strategy and Market Intelligence. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you, Lily? Thanks for having us.
Fantastic. Drew, how's it going? You're silent.
There's so much talking to do. I wanted to start slowly. So
Okay.
give Andrew a chance, right? Because otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm just going to steamroll this.
Okay, we'll warm up. We'll take it slow, ease into things. But as you can see by our cute little header that we have today that says World Backup Month, today we're going to be talking about World Backup Month. So the month of March is World Backup Month, obviously, as declared by Wasabi. And so today we're going to be covering what it is, what it means for you, and how you can implement the best backup practices, specifically with Wasabi, and what it can do for your business. So let's just get right into it. The first question that I have is for Drew. So unfortunately, Drew, I know I just said we were going to ease you into it, but I'm just going to throw you into all this, if that's okay.
Let's go.
Okay. So World Backup Month. Can you give us just a little, or I guess, I'm sorry, World Backup Day is what we are kind of riffing off of here. So can you give us just a little at a glance of what we're talking about, any history that you might have behind it? Just take it away. An elevator pitch, if you will.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that we kind of commandeered World Backup Day and made it bigger because since it started like 12 years ago, I think the topic of backups has gotten significantly bigger. What did we have 12 years ago? Like if you had a gigabyte on your phone, right? You were the top of the line. And now I think you can store a terabyte on your phone, maybe more. That is a lot of TikTok videos, right? That is a lot of content. But yeah, I mean, it was a cool idea, right? Way back when, I think some folks on Reddit thought it'd be a great idea to shine a light on the idea of backups. We certainly do a ton of business in the backup space. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the same way we just had National Puppy Day. I hope everybody got all their puppy pictures on Instagram because that's more storage. And we just had daylight savings time, probably the worst holiday of the year. Everybody loses an hour of sleep, but at the same time, everybody is reminded to check the batteries on your smoke alarms and your CO2 alarms, especially, right? So good to have reminders. And backup's a great place to be reminded because you have a lot at risk. I know I have terabytes upon terabytes of family photos, and buddy of mine just had his Facebook account hacked. He was storing a ton of family photos in Facebook. I don't know where his originals are. I don't think he made backups. And his account got hacked. He lost his account. They basically deleted it. He built a new account. He's like, there goes 10 years of my life gone.
Oh,
Bummer.
geez. Yeah, I mean, from family photos to smoke alarms, I mean, it's just kind of mind-boggling, the diversity of data that can be backed up. And it just goes to show how important it is.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about it, whether you're an individual or an enterprise business. For individuals, think about all the photos, think about all the contacts, all of the conversations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to remember too much anymore, right? We just have to kind of remember where did we
The
have that conversation? Oh, yeah, that was a text stream, and you just kind of roll back, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know about you all, but like I have my chat history set to never delete
Me too.
because
Me
that
too.
right. I don't have to worry about because I can also be like, no, you said Chinese food, not Mexican food. Right.
Show us the receipts.
I can settle those arguments really quickly. So, but and as a business, right, you have databases, you have various applications that you run your business on. Those systems could be virtualized, which a virtual server is in essence a large collection of files, right? Um, and it doesn't take very much to lose, you know, some or all of that data in the blink of an eye.
Right.
And, think about if you've ever lost your phone, or once upon a time, we used to have these things called address books, right? I think I have mine right here. But this one is actually my secret password book because I can't remember anymore the 6,000 passwords
Ooh,
that
Drew
I need.
advertising that
So,
on the LinkedIn Live. Nice choice.
well, they'll have to break in. They'll have to break into my house, get past the guard dogs, the moat, and the crocodiles, um,
That's true.
and break into the safe, get past the laser beams. What else did Mission Impossible? What else did Tom Cruise do? But anyway, and the funny thing is, Lily, believe it or not, I have a backup of my password book, physical backup. I have 2 copies, and I have a copy that is encrypted and immutable that I store in the cloud. There you go.
That's legit. So
Yeah.
speaking of the
Well,
cloud, um, fun little tie-in. I know we talked about kind of backup at a glance, but where does Wasabi fit into the backup picture?
that's a great question. So we are the storage target for practically every backup application vendor out there today. We do a ton of work with Veeam. We do a ton of work with Commvault, Cohesity. We also work with the backup as a service providers, great partners, MSP 360, Opta9, Haiku. Really doesn't matter wherever your application is running, whether you're running it on-prem, whether you're running in the cloud. Just about everybody today who is cool and hip is able to store a copy in the cloud. We could talk about more about why that's important, but that's where we come in, right? We serve as that, secure, encrypted, immutable storage target for all your backup needs. How is that?
Right.
Is that a good plug?
Very good plug. So yeah, shout out to all of our awesome partners. We
And
love working with you guys.
Andrew,
Well done.
Andrew's shaking
Yeah.
his head up and down, so getting the Andrew seal of approval.
Nod of approval, I was just gonna say.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking this morning, I was looking for I could have sworn that I had my KTN, the number that you use for TSA pre-check. I was literally looking for it
Oh,
to and fro on my computer, my cell phone, couldn't find it. And I guess that's an instance where maybe it would be nice to have a backup somewhere that's easily accessible, but it's gone website.
yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I hate it when that happens. And thankfully, I let the airlines keep track of my KTN. Um, Although I probably should write it down in my passport or something like that. But yeah, it's really frustrating, right? And I think that's the interesting thing about backup, right? Folks think, or at least we do, right? Because that's our business. It's all about digital assets, but the reality is there's also physical assets like your passport, your driver's license, your credit cards, all that stuff you should have, you know, written down or photocopies. A photocopy is this ancient technology
Oh,
where
come
you
on.
put something on a piece of glass and it takes a picture of it and then prints it on a piece of paper. No, seriously, what do you do now? You take your phone, you aim it at all your things, all your credit card, your passport, and you just store it, in your photo log, right? Whether it's in Google Photos, iCloud, wherever. Got to be careful though, right? You don't want that stuff getting in the wrong hands. Um, my wife introduced me to an amazing app where you just point your phone at it, something, and it'll scan it, make it into a PDF. You send that off to whoever you need to send it off to. But if you're blessed to have the means to travel and you have a passport, right? They always tell you to not only leave a copy of your passport at home with somebody you can get a hold of quickly, but to put a copy or two in your luggage so that if your passport's stolen and you've got to go to the embassy and get some documentation to help you get back into the United States, right? You're starting from a point of strength, right? You're starting from somewhere where you can justify, yes, this is really who I am and I have the evidence to prove it. Whereas if you've ever lost a credit card or a debit card and you didn't write that number down, and you call the bank and say, yeah, so I lost my debit card. Can you send me another one? And oh, my address changed. Could you send it to this new address? They're like, yeah, no, not
Uh-huh.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, haha, you're not going to fool us again. And you've got to go through the whole authentication and authorization process, right, to the nth degree, which is great. That's what you want your bank to do. But for you, it's a massive pain in the
Quite inconvenient.
quite inconvenient.
Yes. So I know we just mentioned a couple of our partners that we work with, specifically Veeam. If you watched our last LinkedIn Live with Drew and I, we went into a lot of detail about the V12 release and the Microsoft
A lot.
365 V7 release. But for those of you who might have missed that, Drew, would you mind just giving a quick Cliff Notes version of what you could have expected from the live?
I'm laughing because I can't imagine of the tens of thousands of people who tuned in last time that anybody could have missed that segment.
Big stuff.
I mean, Andrew's laughing, but when you've got Drew Once, on stage, nobody misses that performance. You like that, Lily?
Production.
All right, so let's get serious for a moment. So yes, Veeam is a great partner. They just released a new version of Veeam Backup and Recovery, part of their Veeam platform. And specifically for that application, they did a number of things that we love, right? Principal among those is that they now have the ability to back up directly to cloud storage. And stay tuned. We're going to probably do another LinkedIn Live here in a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so. We're going to talk about the economic benefits of direct to cloud, right? Why would you bypass that beautiful hybrid architecture that you've built for years and years? High speed on-prem, cloud as a second copy. We're gonna mix things up. So love that Veeam has enabled that capability. With that also now comes the ability to back up NAS filers directly to cloud. Huge advantage there, especially when Wasabi's pricing is so predictable, so easy to extrapolate the growth of your NAS to the growth of your backup storage costs. And then also endpoint protection, laptops, desktops, Windows, Linux, Mac, right? Being able to back up all those systems directly to cloud, that just makes it so easy. For MSPs to implement and for users to get their data wherever they are, wherever they happen to be traveling, because we're all kind of spread to the four corners of the world these days. So that's it. I think that's the nutshell right there.
Pretty comprehensive. Yeah, that was good. That was good. So I know we've been talking a lot about Veeam, especially because they've been getting so much attention with their latest release. However, I wanted to ask you, do you have any other partners in mind who have big news?
I'm so glad that I put that in the script for you to ask me.
We don't use scripts.
Because,
What are you talking about?
oh, excuse me. Prompts. Run of show. It's okay. No, nobody. There's no illusion that we practice this for hours and hours before we come live. Okay. Yes, actually, big shout out to our friends at Opti9. I think we're going to have a bigger announcement around this coming real soon. But they just announced that they have some artificial intelligence tools that they're implementing called Observer. And Observer is going to help folks to mitigate the threat of ransomware, right? Essentially, it's going to watch how you use your storage. And if it starts to see some, abnormal behavior, some irregular access patterns, or especially if it starts to see a lot of delete commands being issued, it's going to help you really shut down those malicious hacks a lot faster. And that's great. That's great for everybody. And then I think they're also going to be extending their coverage for the Veeam platform, of which they're also a key Veeam partner. So love working with that team, and looking forward to how we're going to work with them even more. So yeah, lots of great news. And I expect we're going to see even more great news coming out as we move through into Q2.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. So Drew, I'm sorry, Drew wants say, I'm chatting you a lot, but I'll give you a little break. I know Andrew has been in the wings and has some really cool stuff to share. So Andrew, for those of us who might not know, could you talk about 321 and how it's evolving with the cloud?
Sure. I'll pull in Drew to comment on this. Don't worry.
Andrew wants say, Drew, you got some
Yeah,
competition.
It's World Backup Month, so we got to talk about some interesting backup related market trends, right? And I had this conversation at the beginning of the year with our co-founder and CEO David Friend about how the 321 backup rule has evolved over time, because he has decades of history in the backup market, so who better to ask? But I kind of, the more I think about this, the less I have an answer, right? So the old strategy was 321 backup, 3 copies of your data on 2 different types of media, and one of them offsite. And the 2 and the 1 are not really applicable to a lot of, you don't really need 2 different media types. Right. of your two different media types for your backups anymore. So I feel like there's almost like a 321 for cloud, there's a 321 for on-prem, and there's probably a 321 for like multi-cloud environments, right? I think that's kind of how we start to look at it. I would argue that the 321 for cloud is probably 3 copies of your data, right? Because if you're using a public cloud provider, they're probably already making multiple copies of your data just as part of their resilience platform, right? Totally. So you've probably got multiple copies, but then you can replicate your data too. So you probably know that you have at least 3 copies of your data. I would argue that those copies, you should be able to validate that they're in 2 different availability zones or regions, or storage regions or locations. So that can be, the 2 can be kind of like your geo dispersal of data within your platform. If you're a multi-cloud in enterprise, maybe it means 2 different clouds. See, now I'm kind of getting off track, but let's keep it to just a single cloud provider. And then 1, you should probably have 1 local copy of your data, right? That's either more of kind of like an offline backup, but it's a copy of your data in the cloud, and it's something as a last ditch effort. If you need to recover to, you can get that offline or off cloud copy. So anyway, I think the fact is 321 is evolving with the realities of our market, and the reality is that cloud has become an integral part of backup, right? Whereas it didn't exist when 321 was originally created. So that's conceptualized. Thank you, Drew.
Nice.
But that's I think I like to go. I think that's one of the fun thought exercises when you think of backup, when you think about a universal truth, how enterprises should think about protecting their data across cloud and on-premises. It's kind of goes back to that. Well, how do we apply 321 to our reality, and where our data is stored?
Got it. So, Andrew, one of the reasons why we're so happy that you're here today is because Andrew is, as you can see on his little job title, he does strategy and market intelligence. So, in other words, he's the data guy. He knows all there is to know about the cloud industry. So, I am super excited to just kind of pick your brain and ask specifically to the viewers who, I mean, obviously, backup is going to be relevant to them if they're watching this. Um, but do you have any stats that, or like industry-wide stats that might be relevant to them?
I do. I've gathered some backup related stats. Um, I guess I'll start with the good and then move to kind of like the bad and the ugly, right? When it
Right.
comes to backup. So, um, my history was an analyst at Forrester and IDC, so I've grabbed some mostly IDC stats because I think they're kind of one of the leaders on the analyst side when it comes to storage and backup. And we know from IDC now that 96% of enterprise data is backed up.
Wow.
Yes, Drew, can you believe it? It seems a lot. It seems like a pretty high proportion, right? 96% of enterprise data backed up.
Wow.
And this is kind of a good and a bad thing. There's a lot of copies of data generated from that backup activity. The
Yeah.
average number of copies of data within enterprises are 13. So you can think about how many of those are replicas, backup copies, things that are out of date, things that are up to date, things that are just enterprises don't even know exist. So kind of a good and a bad thing. But
That's
the,
a lot.
you can I think the point is that from my history covering the backup market, and Drew, maybe I'll get your perspective on this. Backup solutions have gone from like an expensive insurance policy that required a lot of manual intervention and kind of bespoke implementation to a little bit more of a luxury today where they're not as expensive. Backup solutions, backup services, they're not as difficult to maintain, and a lot
Yeah.
of times they're not as expensive, right? So being able to back up more of your data cost effectively has become a reality, and a lot of that has to do with cloud, right? Tying it back to the cloud as a backup target. So that's what's enabled
Yeah.
a lot of that. But the difficulty is like 96% of that enterprise data might be backed up, but how much of it is accessible, up to date, and secure? Probably a significantly smaller proportion. Okay.
Not 13, I'll tell you that.
So this is kind of the key takeaway I wanted to talk about for World Backup Month is that backup backup is becoming it's become a more strategic central IT function for enterprises. But just because your data is backed up doesn't mean that it's up to date and accessible and secure. So, Drew, what do you think? You have a
I
significant
agree.
history. You have a significant history in this market, right?
Yeah. I've had a few tours of duty.
Yeah, that's right.
In this space, but yeah. So let's come at it from a ransomware perspective, right? Yes, 96% may be backed up, but and it may be encrypted, right? Which is great. All your backups should be encrypted. The problem is those systems are susceptible to being compromised. I would say that a very high percentage of on-prem backup systems, if the premises is compromised, those systems are susceptible to malware, ransomware, and
Right.
so they're rendered useless, right? Whether the backups are encrypted or deleted, and that's where object storage is going to change the game, right? Because I believe that this move by Veeam in V12 to elevate object storage as a first class citizen changes the game, and you're going to see more and more backups being pointed at object systems because of object lock and immutability,
Right.
which elevates the utility of those systems, right? That's where I think, go back to 321 for a moment in terms of cloud, right? You have your primary working data. That's your first copy, right? You make a backup wherever, let's say you back it up to a bucket in the cloud in Wasabi, right? And then you make a backup of the backup to a different bucket in a different region, and you render that copy immutable.
Right.
Okay. Now you're in a really great position, and you have 3 copies instead of 13 copies. And we laugh, but let's be honest, right? When you are, a credit card processing company, right, and you're talking about, hundreds or millions of dollars a day in transactions, yeah, you're going to keep 13 copies, or you're going to keep 8, 9 copies of that data, because you cannot afford to lose a single transaction.
Yeah.
Right? Your RPO is this small.
Yeah.
Right. And your RTO, it's probably same. So
Right.
So more stats. You bring up a couple good points. Like you're talking about immutability, right? And that in the context of whatever your enterprise strategy is, that 3-2-1, the 1 could be keep 1 immutable copy, right? Instead of keeping 1 copy offline. So again, I think I get tied up in what should 3-2-1 be, but I think in reality, it's like, as long as you have a strategy that fits your organization and aligns with your data protection backup strategy, and it's enumerated in that way, then that's what counts.
Got it.
Additional stats that I'm thinking of, though. So one of the reasons why I think that 96% is also inflated is because of SaaS backup. So as enterprises use more and more SaaS applications, a lot of that data is backed up automatically by the SaaS provider. But then the enterprise does not think about the extent of those backups, right? We start getting into the shared responsibility model. Is my SaaS provider backing up that data for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Probably. What happens after that? Where does it go? Does it go to a third-party object store? Is it kept encrypted? Is it kept immutable? It's like a giant black hole, right? So you get this inflation of that enterprise data due to the increasing deployment of SaaS apps. And it's like this false sense of security for a lot of your backed up data. It might be backed up for 30, 60, 90 days, but then after that, what happens? So the stat is from IDC, only 20 to 30% of Microsoft 365 users said they leverage a third-party backup protection tool.
That's nuts. Do you know off the top of your head how many current Microsoft 365 users there are? Because if not,
millions.
Yeah.
There are
millions
a lot.
and millions and millions.
So that 20 to 30% is like nothing.
So there's a lot of, although you get that 96% might stick out as a good thing, you can start to peel away the layers and understand, I think, the nuances of how data needs to be backed up over long durations, over the base, over and above the baseline SLAs, all that stuff. So I think it's a good conversation to have, though.
Yeah.
Hey, Lily, just want to late breaking news here. Sean says that Sean's our producer who you can't see.
Yes, I was going to say this right after.
Oh, please go ahead. I just wanted to make a break because I know Andrew can just talk and talk and talk.
However, our producer Sean, who is brilliant, has just sent us a little LinkedIn image that we have people in a ton of different regions tuned in. So shout out to the people in Greater Boston, Greater Hartford, Greater Munich. Shout out to our EMEA team for making that happen. The Charlotte metro area and Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill. This is huge. So glad that we are going beyond Boston and reaching a ton of people. This is great.
Is there such a thing as lesser Boston? Is that like Hyannis or
the Cape? I don't know.
Or Syosset, the Cape.
The Cape's definitely not lesser.
And then lesser Hartford.
No hate to the Cape. I love the Cape.
Lesser Hartford, is that like Westport, like
I'm from the New Haven area, so
there you go. All right.
but
Excellent. But the
Andrew,
stats don't even it doesn't add up to 100. Where's everybody else? Sean, we need more numbers.
Maybe maybe that's just the people who put in their location. That might be just like optional.
privacy thing.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Andrew. Way more fun.
Yeah, Andrew, do you have any more stats? Because
I've got stats for days. I guess the last one I would leave you guys with is, and our listeners, if all else fails, then when it comes to backup, money usually talks. And Drew, you mentioned the tight RTOs and RPOs and the significant financial impact of downtime. Typically, what we found is that on average, the cost of downtime is $250,000 per hour. So $2 million if you're down for a full business day, right, is kind of what the cost of downtime equates to. So if, for our listeners, especially if you're ever having trouble making the business case for why you need a bigger backup budget, why you need a better backup strategy, cost of downtime is a great go-to.
Yep. And if I bet you anything, you can reduce the cost of your backups if you use Wasabi.
That's right.
Self promo. But as I said before, Andrew is the numbers guy. He has pulled together the Wasabi Global Cloud Storage Index, which we've talked at length about both in other lives and across our social media. So if you haven't seen that, I will put that in the description once this is done as a little call to action if you're interested in learning more. So I know for both of you that we are here to celebrate World Backup Month, but let's zoom out a little bit and think beyond backup so we can keep these practices not just in the month of March, but 365 days a year. So we've talked a little bit about ransomware, not at length though, but I wanted to know, Drew, how does backup and specifically backup practices help with addressing the ransomware kind of crisis that we're in?
Yeah, so it doesn't help at all. And I say that to set up the next statement, which is it's the last line of defense.
Yeah.
Because if you do not have a reliable, tested backup and your systems are encrypted out from under you, your on-prem or wherever your backups are deleted, that's it. You're done. Pack up, send everybody home, game over. If you follow NIST or CISA or any of the, the major bodies who prescribe, best practices for ransomware resilience, data protection, right up front, the number one thing that is brought up every time, have good backups. Without good backups, you have no foundation to build on. No amount of scanning and multi-factor authentication, zero trust architecture, none of that's going to make any difference if you don't have a good backup. Period. End of story. And that's why you're seeing such a proliferation. So many SAT words today.
Yeah, nice word choice.
Of vendors and solutions to back up your data. Right. Andrew, what would you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think this kind of dovetails with what I was just thinking about, like big picture, how the market's evolving. What I think ransomware and malware attacks are driving is this like merging of data protection and security markets, and by extension, tools, features, services. And Wasabi is kind of, I think as a storage provider, you're positioned well in as that evolution happens, because usually it's whoever owns the data that gets to make a lot of the important decisions. And Wasabi, in a lot of cases, owns that data. So we you get a seat at the table. You get a lot of respect when you're dealing with peers on the security side. But it really, I think what the kind of the cat and mouse game of security, ransomware, malware attacks are going to lead to is just you'll see. I mean, you've already seen vendors start to market this, right? Whether it's cyber resiliency, cyber protection. It's about like this confluence of backup functionality, but also proactive incident response, identification, mitigation, whatever you want to call it. Imagine if your backup tool could not only back up your data in the event of a ransomware attack, but prevent that ransomware attack from happening in the first place, right? And you have kind of like a single environment that can do all of that. This is like pie in the sky stuff, but I believe that that's how the market will trend, right? You get this confluence of both backup and security that are going to be delivered as a service probably in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think that's the future of backup. It's this, all-encompassing solution that not only will protect your data and keep it secure, but alert you to anomalies, allow you to sandbox your environments and mitigate threats when they happen. Kind of like a one-stop shop. I think that's how the crystal ball thinkers are looking at the future of the market.
Yeah. I hate to kind of veer away from the original plan, but I'm just seeing now that we've gotten a question in the comments of our live here. And if either of you have an answer to this, a LinkedIn user says, a client has deduped and compressed data to back up. Will Wasabi back it up in that state?
Oh, that was at 3:20. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry we missed that.
A client has deduped and compressed data to back up. Will Wasabi? Yeah, I think the answer is yes, simply.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as long as the backup, Sean's falling on his sword. As long as the backup application will essentially translate the data set into objects once it's deduped and compressed, which essentially it is. It's in blocks. So, dedupe and compression is a block level function. No problem. In fact, we already support cloud tiering from the Dell Technologies data domain backup systems, which dedupe and compress their data, and essentially just push tier to Wasabi, right? Data that is a little bit older, needs to be retained for maybe compliance reasons, or just having a depth of backups as a hedge against deeply rooted malware. And works all day long.
Yeah. So long story short, yes. And so sorry.
Yes, we got a question. Woo!
I think that means it is object storage. It is object. I don't know what that means.
Well, I think so. Again, it really depends on the backup application. As long as the backup application will speak to object storage, S3 object or S3 API, should work no problem. But drop us a note. We'd love to go deeper into the solution that you're looking at implementing.
So I definitely want to ask this next question because I think it'll be super relevant. Because I know that we all have kind of described backup as this last line of defense. So let's kind of prevent it from ever getting to that point. So first and foremost, Andrew, do you have any preventative measures that you suggest from getting to that last line of defense in the first place?
No, I would just say along the line, at the risk of repeating myself, what we just kind of talked about is maybe have a strategy. I think enterprises should start pursuing a strategy that puts data protection under the same umbrella as data security, right? And that's kind of what I was just alluding to, the way the market's going. Enterprises should start to prepare. So that way you have the visibility, I don't want to use like a bunch of buzzwords, but it's true. You eliminate extra copies of your data, you break down the data silos, you know who has access to data in terms of roles and user access, then you can protect it better. Then you can add analytics on top. You can add search and query onto that, and you have a resilient, accessible object store under all that. That's kind of like the nirvana, right? That's really, I think you set yourself up for success in terms of preventing, mitigating ransomware by having that good visibility into your data and access to data security tools, functions, all under one umbrella. So that's I think the best way to approach a preventative strategy that will hopefully be future proof. You never know what's going to happen after ransomware. I guess something where, even worse where, and then who knows, it'll be a totally different conversation. But for now, that's that's my answer.
Perfect. All right.
Andrew, sorry, Lily. Andrew, I love that answer because that really, I like that idea of putting data protection under the umbrella of, system security.
Yeah, it's a
Right?
good way to look at it. I like
That
it.
makes so much more sense than the traditional silos of compute, network, storage, backup being kind of like the second class citizen, right? And then you've got this other group over here who's always completely disgruntled with how poorly everybody else is operating, right? Which is the security team, right?
Yeah.
Which is like they walk around and they look at all the sticky notes on the monitors with all the passwords, right? And they're just like shaking your heads like we're never going to be safe. So I think that's a brilliant and I think you're absolutely right. I think we're going to see a convergence of information security, artificial intelligence, data protection.
Yeah.
I think we need to go write a business plan as soon as this LinkedIn Live is over. I think you hit something really smart there.
Yeah. Seriously.
Well, thank you. It's always easy to say in theory. I think it's extremely hard to do in practice, but I think over the years that will be right. Successful organizations will find a way to like operationalize that theory and put it into practice.
I mean, just think of cloud storage was such a novelty just years ago, and now look at it.
True.
Yeah,
now
17 years ago, that's when S3 came to market.
Yeah.
So before that, it was clay tablets and punch cards.
Ooh, Mark says hi, Drew.
Yes. Thanks for tuning in, Mark. Appreciate it. My apologies. Forgot to call out Rubrik as one of our valued partners as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, Rubrik has a tremendous set of security functions built in to their data protection capabilities. So appreciate you saying hi, Mark, and reminding me to let everybody know that you have an outstanding solution.
Yeah, Team Rubrik. So my last kind of, it's not really a question, but thing that I'll say before we wrap up. Just a plug for The Bucket, which is Wasabi's online magazine dedicated to sharing storage insights, trends, kind of thought leadership pieces from people at Wasabi. And if you haven't read the most recent, or one of the most recent articles that Drew wrote about 37 Signals and how they left the cloud for compute, Drew, do you just want to elaborate a little bit on that article and kind of what it means?
In a nutshell, the folks at 37 Signals basically figured out that all the great power of compute in the cloud was not serving them well. So they picked up their workloads and repatriated it to on-prem systems. But in the process, they were very transparent about what they were spending and where they were spending their cloud money. And I'm following very closely to see what they do next because they've stated that they've got a significant number of petabytes still in the cloud. And it's going to be interesting to see what and how they do with that, because I think it would serve as a model for us to pursue a lot of other opportunities and maybe even convince them to do some work with us. So Yeah, check it out. Good article.
Yeah, so I will link
Oh wait,
that.
I wrote it. No, just
Check it out. It is a good article.
It is. It is. I've also read it. It's an excellent article. If you want to learn more at the bucket, I will link that in the description as well as the cloud storage index. But before we wrap up, do either of you have anything else to add?
No, I've talked. I've exhausted my speaking for the day. So thank
Yes.
you for having us, Lily. It's always fun. It's great to get together with you guys and just kind of hang out and talk.
Yeah,
Love it.
ditto.
yeah. So happy World Backup Month, Backup Day to everybody. Back up your computers, back up your hard items, your passports, your credit cards, your password books, and call your mother. She misses you. So
Yes, I echo what Drew said. Even though March is coming to an end, you should always be backing up your data 365 days a year. But I think that's all we've got for today. Thank you both for joining me, and take care.
Thank you guys. Thanks everyone for
thanks,
joining.
Lily. Thanks, Andrew. Cheers.